It was the kind of evening that didn't belong to this city. Heavy clouds pressing down, thunder growling somewhere in the distance, and rain falling in thin, silvery sheets that turned the streets into mirrors. I should have gone home hours ago, but the garage was quiet, and I liked it that way. Just me, the hum of the radio, and the smell of engine oil and rain. That's when I heard it. The slow rumble of an engine that wasn't running right. It rolled to a stop right outside the door, a 1967 Mustang Fastback. Classic, rare, beautiful. Even through the rain, she looked like something from another time. Gleaming chrome, deep black paint, raindrops sliding down her curves like tears, and then I saw him. He stepped out of the driver's side slowly, like he owned the ground beneath his shoes. Tall, dark suit. No umbrella. The rain didn't seem to touch him. Or maybe he just didn't care. There was something unnerving about the way he looked around. Calm, calculated, like a man who was used to danger and didn't mind walking straight into it. Engine trouble? I asked, wiping my hands on a rag. He just stared at me, eyes sharp and unreadable. Then finally, in a voice smooth but cold, he said, "Can you fix her?" The way he said it, her, like the car was alive. I nodded. Pop the hood, he did. And as the steam hissed out, lightning flashed overhead, catching the faint scar that ran along his jawline. He didn't flinch. He just watched me work, silent, steady, unblinking. I tried to ignore it, but his gaze felt heavy, like he was studying more than just my hands. The engine was old school, powerful but temperamental. A carburetor problem, maybe the fuel line. I reached in, fingers cold, mind racing faster than my pulse. Who shows up at midnight in a storm with a car like this and eyes like that? "You work alone?" he asked suddenly. The question came out quiet, almost casual, but it carried something else underneath. A warning, maybe. "Usually," I said. "People don't line up for after-hours repairs." He smiled faintly, like he knew something I didn't. "Good," he murmured. "That's safer." I froze. "Safer? For who?" For a moment, the only sound was the rain. Then he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it with a silver lighter, the flame flickering against his face. In that brief glow, I saw something in his eyes. Grief, maybe. Or guilt. Or both. I tightened the last bolt and shut the hood. "There," I said softly. "She's fixed." He looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "No, you just brought her back to life." And as he stepped closer, rain dripping from his coat, I realized this wasn't just another client. This was a storm, and I'd just invited it inside. The rain had slowed, but the silence that followed was heavier than before. He didn't leave right away. He just stood there, one hand resting on the car, the other slipping that cigarette between his lips, eyes fixed on me like he was still trying to figure out what I was made of. The glow from the garage lights caught the outline of his jaw. Sharp, deliberate, like everything about him had been carved with intent. He exhaled smoke, slow and steady. "Do you always work this late?" he asked. His tone wasn't casual. It was probing. He wanted to hear my story, but not for small talk. "Sometimes," I said. "Some of us don't sleep much." He tilted his head slightly, studying me, like the answer meant more than I realized. Then, with a faint, almost imperceptible smirk, he said, "People who don't sleep usually have something on their mind." I went back to cleaning my tools just to avoid his stare. He didn't move, didn't blink. That quiet between us wasn't awkward. It was charged. When he finally spoke again, his voice had softened, but only barely. "You've got good hands," he said. "Precise, confident. Occupational habit," I replied. "You either get good at fixing things or they fall apart on you." That made him pause. His eyes lowered for a moment. My words hit somewhere deeper than I meant them to. Then he smiled again, that slow, dangerous kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "I know the feeling," he said quietly. A few seconds later, thunder rumbled again, and he flicked the cigarette away, watching the ember die in a puddle. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small silver money clip. Inside it, crisp bills, too many. He handed them to me without counting. "That's way too much," I said, holding up the money. "It's a simple repair, not open heart surgery." He looked at me then, really looked, and said, "Everything worth fixing costs more than it seems. It wasn't just a line. It felt like a confession. Something about it made the air feel tighter, like the world outside the garage had just shrunk around us. I wanted to ask who he was, but something told me I shouldn't. There was a weight to his silence, the kind that only comes from a man who's seen things most people don't survive. As he turned to leave, I caught sight of something on his wrist, a faint tattoo, half covered by his cuff. It looked like a crest, maybe foreign, maybe old, but it wasn't the kind of thing ordinary men wore. He reached for the car door, paused, and glanced back. "If she ever gives you trouble again," he said, "don't fix her. Call me." I frowned, opening my mouth to ask his name, but he was already gone. The roar of that Mustang faded into the night, leaving only rain, smoke, and a faint echo of curiosity burning in my chest. I didn't know it then, but that was the night I met the most dangerous man in the city, and the only one who'd ever make my heart forget how to stay safe. The storm passed overnight, but he didn't leave my mind with it. Every time I wiped down the workbench or heard an engine hum outside, I caught myself listening for that same low rumble of the Mustang. It was stupid, really. People came and went. Cars came and went, but he'd left something behind, something I couldn't name. By the third day, I'd convinced myself it was over. A strange, quiet encounter in the rain, until I found the envelope. It was slipped under the garage door. No name, no address. Inside, a single note. "You fixed what others couldn't. Dinner. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. The glass room." And below that, a small silver key. I stared at it for a long time. My heart beat a little too loud for the silence around me. The glass room wasn't just a restaurant. It was the restaurant, the kind of place where people like me didn't get reservations, the kind of place where men like him owned the tables. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part was already wondering what to wear. The next evening, I stood outside the glass room, feeling completely out of place. Gold light spilled through the tall windows, catching crystal glasses and white linen inside. Every guest that walked past me looked like they belonged. I didn't. Then I saw him. He was waiting by the entrance, a black suit tailored like it was made for sin. When his eyes met mine, it felt like the whole room fell quiet. Even though I hadn't stepped inside yet, "You came," he said softly, as if he'd already known I would. "I'm still not sure why," I answered. He smiled, slow, deliberate. "Maybe curiosity," he said. "Or maybe you just like fixing broken things." I wanted to roll my eyes, but my heart wasn't cooperating. He offered his hand. I hesitated for half a second before taking it. His touch was warm, too warm, and that alone was enough to make me forget how to breathe. The restaurant was elegant, soft music playing, candles flickering against glass walls overlooking the city. He didn't order right away. Instead, he studied me, again. "Always watching, always measuring. Still don't know your name," I said finally. He leaned back in his chair, one eyebrow lifting. "Maybe that's safer," he replied. Something inside me sparked at that. The same mix of irritation and curiosity he seemed to thrive on. "Or maybe you just like the mystery," I said. This time he actually laughed, a quiet, real sound. And when he looked at me again, his voice dropped lower. "Maybe I do." The rest of the night blurred. Laughter, glances, that subtle pull between fear and fascination. When I finally stepped outside, the city lights shimmered like 1,000 secrets. He opened the car door for me, his hand brushing mine. "You shouldn't trust strangers," he murmured. I looked up at him and whispered, "I don't." But my heart, it already did. The next morning, the world felt strangely quiet. The kind of quiet that creeps under your skin and whispers that something's missing. I didn't realize what it was at first, until I reached the garage. His car was gone. No sign of him, no message, nothing, just the faint trace of cologne in the air. That same smoky, expensive scent that had clung to his suit the night we met. And on my workbench, tucked between a wrench and an oil rag, was something small. A folded piece of paper. I hesitated before opening it, half afraid, half curious. Inside was a single line, written in bold, slanted handwriting. "You shouldn't have looked at me the way you did." That was it. No name, no number. Just a warning disguised as memory. I read it over and over again, wondering if it was a threat, or something else entirely. Every word felt deliberate, like he'd known exactly what it would do to me, how it would make me think of his eyes, The way they'd followed every movement I made. Like he was memorizing me, and damn, it worked. For days. I tried to push him out of my head. But I'd see that Mustang in my mind every time a car passed by. I'd hear that calm, dangerous voice in every silence. My friends told me to forget him. That mysterious men with money and secrets only bring pain. But what they didn't understand was that pain had already started to feel like part of him. And part of me too. One night, about a week later, I was closing up the garage when I noticed something strange. A car parked across the street. Windows tinted, engine off. It had been there for hours. I stepped outside, trying to act casual. But my pulse was already racing. The air was cold, the kind that makes every sound feel sharper. Then I saw it, the faint red glow of a cigarette inside the car. Someone was watching me. My hand trembled slightly as I turned off the lights, pretending not to notice. But I could feel those eyes, the same heavy, unblinking stare that had haunted me since that night. When I finally looked back, the car was gone. No engine noise. No tires on wet asphalt. Just gone, like it had never been there. I went inside, locked the door, and stood still for a long time, listening to the rain against the windows. I wanted to believe it was paranoia, but deep down I knew better. Men like him didn't just vanish. They watched. They waited, and somehow I could feel it. The storm I thought had passed was only circling back. It was late afternoon when I saw it again. That car. The same black 1967 Mustang gliding down the street, sunlight catching on its polished frame like a blade. For a heartbeat, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But then the engine cut and the door opened. He stepped out. Not the same as before. Sharper, colder, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than my whole garage. This time, he wasn't a stranger caught in the rain. He was something else. Someone who carried silence like a weapon. My heart started that uneven rhythm again. The one it had learned only for him. He walked toward me slowly, his shoes echoing against the concrete floor, eyes locked on mine. I didn't say a word. Neither did he. He didn't have to. The air between us spoke loud enough. "You disappeared," I finally said, keeping my tone even. He tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "Did I?" he asked. "Or did you just stop looking?" That voice, low, smooth, dangerous. It slid through the room like smoke, curling around everything I couldn't say out loud. I crossed my arms, pretending to be annoyed, pretending I wasn't relieved. "You left a note," I said. He smiled faintly. "You read it. It wasn't exactly comforting. It wasn't meant to be." He said it so casually, like emotions were things he could pick up or discard whenever he wanted. Then, without warning, he placed something on my workbench. It was a small velvet pouch. Inside, I felt the cool weight of metal. A car key, sleek and unfamiliar. "Consider it a thank you," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For being the only person in this city who didn't ask who I am." That sentence hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. Who was he? Every instinct screamed not to ask, but curiosity had teeth. "I didn't ask," I said slowly, "because I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." He stepped too close, and in that low voice that could both calm and burn, he whispered, "I don't think you want to know." The sound of his phone vibrating cut through the silence. He glanced at it, one quick look, and I saw it then, a flicker of danger. Not fear, not guilt, control. He answered quietly, speaking in another language. Something Italian, maybe. The words rolled off his tongue like poetry laced with threat. When he hung up, his expression had changed. He wasn't here to flirt. He was here for something else. "I have to go," he said, voice clipped now. "But I'll be back." I forced a small laugh. "You said that last time." He paused at the door, glanced back, and said softly, "Last time I wasn't sure. This time I am." And then he was gone, leaving behind the faint echo of his cologne, a car key I didn't ask for, and the sinking feeling that I'd just stepped into a world I was never meant to touch. He didn't come back for a few days. But when he did, everything changed. The sound of that Mustang engine was different this time. Louder, deeper, like the city itself held its breath when it passed. I looked up from under the hood of a pickup, wiping sweat and grease from my face, and saw him standing there again. Black suit, black eyes, and that same impossible calm. But he wasn't alone. 2 men stood behind him, broad, silent, dressed the same. They didn't belong in my world, and every instinct told me they weren't here for car trouble. He motioned with a nod, and the men stepped outside, leaving us alone. The silence that followed was heavier than before, intimate, dangerous, magnetic. "You're not just a guy with a classic car," I said finally. He smiled faintly. "No, I'm not." I crossed my arms. "You planning to tell me who you are?" He stepped close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating off him, the faint smell of smoke and rain that clung to his suit. "Let's just say," he murmured, "I fix problems. The kind you can't put on paper." That should have scared me. It didn't. It fascinated me. I tried to hold his stare, but it was like looking into something that could consume you whole. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "Guys like you don't walk into small garages for tune-ups." He chuckled, a low sound that sent a shiver down my spine. "Maybe I came back because of you. Or maybe you just like breaking things." I shot back. That made him smile wider. But there was something else behind it this time, something colder. He stepped even closer, his voice dropping until it was almost a whisper. "Do you know what happens," he asked, "when people try to touch what's mine?" I swallowed hard. "Am I supposed to take that as a threat?" He shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "as protection." His hand brushed mine, barely. But the gesture sent a spark up my arm, hot and confusing. Everything about him screamed danger, yet somehow I felt safe. "I don't need protecting," I said quietly. He studied my face for a long moment, then replied, "Maybe not, but I do." That line, the way he said it was both confession and curse, hit deeper than I expected. There was something wounded behind the arrogance, something I couldn't quite reach. Before I could say anything, his phone buzzed again. He answered, his expression hardening instantly. A few short words in Italian. Orders, maybe. Then, without another word, he turned toward the door. But just as he reached it, he paused. "Lock your doors tonight," he said. "Don't ask why. Just do it." The door shut behind him, leaving only silence and the faint vibration of my racing pulse. And that's when I realized the balance between us had shifted. He wasn't the stranger anymore. He was the storm, and I was already standing in the middle of it. After that night, something shifted. I told myself I didn't care, that he was trouble wrapped in expensive fabric and danger. But my hands trembled the next morning when I turned the garage lights on, and I couldn't decide if it was fear or anticipation. He'd said, "Lock your doors," and I had. But he hadn't said why, and that uncertainty lived rent-free in my chest, keeping my pulse awake long after midnight. For 3 days, no sign of him. Then, just as I started to convince myself it was over, he appeared again. Same Mustang, same presence. But this time, he wasn't alone with his thoughts. He carried the storm with him. He walked in like the room belonged to him. Black shirt, sleeves rolled up, faint scar still visible under the warm garage light. He didn't say a word at first. Neither did I. We just stood there, two people suspended in a silence that hummed like electricity. "You didn't call," I finally said, pretending to sound annoyed. "You didn't ask," he replied, voice low, steady. That tone, it wasn't flirtation. It was gravity, and I hated that I felt myself falling toward it. He looked around, scanning the garage like it was a crime scene. "You been working late again?" "Someone has to pay the bills," I said. "And not all of us have men in suits watching our back." That made him pause, the faintest flicker of amusement crossing his face. "Maybe you should," he murmured. "You'd sleep better." "Or not at all," I muttered under my breath. He caught it. He always caught everything. Then he stepped closer, close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from him. "You think I'm dangerous," he said quietly. "I know you are." "Then why aren't you afraid?" I didn't have an answer. Because the truth was, I was. Just not of him. I was afraid of how my body responded when he was near, of how safety and danger felt the same in his presence. He studied me for a long time before saying, "You shouldn't be here alone at night. Things are changing in this city. The kind of men who come after me don't care who they hurt to get what they want." He reached past me to grab a rag from the bench, his arm brushing mine. Just barely. The touch was accidental, maybe. But it felt deliberate. My breath caught. He noticed. For a second he froze, eyes flicking from my lips to my throat. The air between us tightened, every heartbeat echoing in that small space. Then he stepped back. Just enough to break the tension, but not enough to erase it. "Be careful," he said softly. "I can't protect you from everything." His voice was low, rougher now. It wasn't a warning anymore, but a confession. And as he walked away, my heart did something reckless. It followed him, because deep down, I knew this wasn't just tension. It was gravity. And sooner or later, one of us would have to fall. The night started quiet, too quiet. I was closing up the garage, humming to distract myself from the storm brewing in my chest. The same one he left there days ago with a single look, a single warning, "Be careful." But nothing about him ever left quietly. The rain had started to fall again, soft at first, like the city was whispering secrets. I turned the key in the lock, ready to go home when I heard it. Engines. More than one. Headlights cut through the dark, slicing the wet pavement in white beams. 3 black SUVs rolled to a stop across the street. My breath froze. No one came here at this hour. The first door opened, and a man stepped out, broad-armed, face half hidden under the streetlight. Then another, and another. My heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't random. Before I could move, a familiar sound roared in from the distance. The deep growl of that same '67 Mustang. It slid into view, tires hissing over the wet ground, headlights flashing once, like a signal. Then he was there. He stepped out into the rain. No hesitation, no fear. A dark coat, gun holstered under it, eyes locked on the men like he'd been expecting them. And that's when I realized. This wasn't a visit. This was a war. He looked at me across the street. For a second, the world slowed. Rain suspended midair, my pulse a single drumbeat. "Inside," he said. His voice was calm, absolute. Now, I should have run. I should have screamed, but I couldn't move. Not when one of the men raised his gun. Then everything exploded. Gunfire cracked through the night. Windows shattered. The air filled with smoke and chaos. I ducked behind a car, heart pounding like it might tear through my chest. He moved like a shadow, silent, fast, precise. Every shot he fired hit its mark. He wasn't just dangerous. He was trained, deadly. And now I understood why the others feared him. When it was over, 2 SUVs were gone, tires screeching into the distance. The rain washed the smoke away, but the silence it left was worse. He crossed the street, eyes scanning for threats. When he saw me crouched behind the hood, he holstered his weapon and came closer. His jaw tight, breath heavy. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head. Though my voice wouldn't come, he stepped closer, cupping my face in his hand, rain and blood mixing on his skin. "I told you," he said softly, almost broken. "I didn't want this world touching you." I stared up at him, at the man I thought I knew, the stranger whose car I'd fixed, whose danger I'd felt. And now, the truth I couldn't ignore, he wasn't running from danger. He was the danger. The garage was quiet again. Too quiet for what had just happened outside. Rain dripped from the open door, streaking the floor with muddy trails. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at him. His black coat was soaked, his jawline streaked with blood that wasn't his. He'd fought like he'd done it 100 times before. Because he had. He paced the floor once, dragging a hand through his wet hair, breathing hard, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of what came next. "I didn't want you to see that," he said finally. His voice was low, calm, but something in it trembled, not fear, regret. "I didn't want you to see me." I swallowed, the words sticking in my throat. "Who are you?" He turned, eyes locking with mine. And for the first time since I'd met him, there was no wall, no pretense, no half-smile. Just truth. "My name's Luca," he said. "Luca Moretti." He waited, like he expected me to recognize it. And I did. The Moretti family. Whispered about in every dark corner of the city. The kind of men who didn't ask twice. The kind you didn't cross. I felt my breath hitch, but I didn't step back. Maybe I should have, but something in his eyes, something human, held me there. He exhaled slowly, leaning against the workbench, his voice rough now. My father built an empire on blood and fear. When he died, I inherited both. He looked at the oil-stained floor like it carried the sins of his past. I tried to get out once, he continued. But the thing about this world is, it doesn't let go. You think you're free, and then someone else's mistake drags you back in. Those men tonight? I asked quietly. Rivals. The kind who don't care who's in the way. A shiver ran through me. Not from cold, but realization. That means I was in the way. His gaze lifted, and the answer was already there. Yes, silence. But not empty silence. Heavy, full of all the things neither of us could say. He took a step closer, his tone softening. I didn't mean for you to be part of this. I stopped by that night because my car broke down. Not because I was looking for trouble. But then you looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a monster. My throat tightened. Then why didn't you just leave? He smiled faintly. Sad. Resigned. Because you fixed more than my car, sweetheart. You fixed something I didn't know was broken. He reached for my hand, hesitated, then pulled back, like even touching me might stain what was left of my innocence. Then he whispered, Now you know who I am. And knowing me comes with consequences. Outside, thunder rolled again, low, distant, a warning. And I realized the storm wasn't over. It had only just begun. After that night, nothing felt the same. The world outside kept moving. Cars passed, neon lights flickered, people laughed somewhere down the street. But inside I felt haunted. I could still hear the echo of gunfire, smell the gunpowder on his coat, see the look in his eyes when he said, Knowing me comes with consequences. He wasn't exaggerating. 3 days passed. I tried to return to normal, fixing cars, keeping my head down, pretending my hands didn't shake when I turned a wrench. But peace had a way of slipping through my fingers. The first sign came when I noticed a black sedan parked across from the garage. Engine off, windows tinted, all day. Then my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, mentioned a man in a suit asking questions about me. Polite, but persistent. That's when I knew. The storm had followed me home. That night I called Luca. I didn't know what to say when he answered. Someone's been watching, I whispered. I know. He replied, calm. Too calm. I put them there. My pulse spiked. You what? They're mine. I needed eyes on you. After that night, I couldn't risk someone getting to you before I did. There was a pause, the kind that felt like the edge of a confession. Luca, I said quietly, that's not protection. That's control. He didn't argue. Maybe, he said. But control is the only way I know how to keep people alive. The line went silent. I didn't hang up. I just sat there, listening to the sound of his breathing on the other, and realizing how dangerous it was to care for a man who didn't know where to draw the line between love and power. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. No signature, just 2 words. You're next. The paper trembled in my hand. I felt the air leave my lungs. My first thought wasn't the police. It was him. He arrived before I could even call. Black car, dark expression. He didn't ask to come in. He just did. Show me the note, he said, his tone like ice. I handed it over. He read it once, jaw tightening. Then he tore it in half. They're testing me, he muttered. They want to see how far I'll go to protect you. His voice softened, almost like he hated the words that came next. Now you understand why I didn't want you near me. I swallowed hard. You can't just erase me from your world, Luca. He looked at me then. Really looked. And in his eyes, I saw something that terrified me more than any threat. Resolve. He'd already decided what he was going to do. Then I'll erase them first, he said quietly. And in that moment, I knew the man I'd fallen for wasn't just willing to fight for me. He was willing to burn the world to keep me safe. It started with silence, the kind that comes before a storm. Heavy, unnatural, too still to trust. Luca had been gone all day. No calls, no messages. Just silence. The sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the garage in shades of red and gold. I was closing early, the unease in my stomach too loud to ignore, when I heard the sound of tires screeching against asphalt. A black car stopped outside. He stepped out, coat unbuttoned, face unreadable. But this time, his hands weren't empty. There was blood on his sleeve. My throat went dry. Luca. He didn't answer at first. Just walked past me, straight into the garage, shutting the door behind him. The metallic clang echoed like a gunshot. "I told you not to wait up," he said finally. His voice was calm. "Too calm. What did you do?" I asked. He looked at me. Really looked. And for a moment, I saw the truth flicker behind his eyes. "I warned them," he said simply. They didn't listen. He peeled off his gloves and tossed them aside. They landed on the workbench. Dark leather streaked with red. The smell of blood mixed with oil and gasoline. It made the air feel heavy, suffocating. "You killed someone," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't deny it. "I protected you." My heart twisted. Part horror, part heartbreak. Protection doesn't look like this. He stepped closer. The look in his eyes was unreadable. Not proud, not sorry. Just inevitable. "Everything in my world has a price," he said quietly. "Even safety." I felt tears sting my eyes. "And what's the price for me, Luca?" He didn't answer. He just reached out, slow, cautious, and brushed his thumb against my cheek, wiping away a tear. "I don't know yet," he whispered. "But I'll pay it." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us was barely a breath. I could feel his pulse, wild, uneven, against the silence. Then his phone buzzed. He answered, voice low. "What?" A pause. His expression darkened. "They hit the docks?" he said. "Then it's starting." He hung up, his entire body shifting from man to weapon. "The men who came after you, and they're not stopping." Night was just a message. "Next time, they'll aim to finish it." I stepped closer, my voice trembling. "Then let me help." He looked at me like I'd said something impossible. "You don't belong in this world." "Too late," I said softly. "You brought it to my doorstep." He stared at me for a long second, torn between anger and something deeper. Then he whispered, "Stay inside. Whatever happens next, you can't see it." And with that, he turned, disappearing into the night, leaving a trail of rain, smoke, and blood behind him. That was the night I understood what ruthless really meant, and why the world feared the name Luca Moretti. The next morning, the city felt different. Even the sun seemed wary, filtering through a haze that smelled faintly of smoke and wet asphalt. I hadn't slept. Every shadow in my apartment felt alive. Every creak in the floorboard sounded like footsteps. I couldn't stop replaying last night. Luca, blood on his sleeves, the men falling one by one. The ruthless side of him I'd only glimpsed now felt real, and terrifyingly close. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know you're with him. Stay out of it." I dropped it, my hands shaking. The warning didn't come with kindness. It came with intent. The kind that made me realize the storm outside my garage had followed me home. By midday, whispers reached the streets. Mechanics at nearby garages were suddenly aware of the black Mustang that prowled the city. People glanced my way, curious, wary. Some even smiled, like they knew I was caught in something dangerous, exciting, inevitable. Then came the knocks, small at first. Businessmen asking about Luca. Delivery men asking for him. Everyone probing, testing, looking for a thread to pull him apart. I called him, hands trembling. He answered immediately. Calm, controlled, impossibly steady. "You saw the fallout," he said. "Yes," I whispered. "It's everywhere." A pause. "You have to trust me," he said. "Don't go outside. Don't answer anyone. Don't even think about it." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream that I wasn't some fragile girl to be hidden, but every instinct told me otherwise. Because after last night, after seeing him unleash that violence, I understood. He wasn't kidding. Hours later, I heard the first gunshots in the distance. I froze. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, suffocating. The sound carried across the city like a warning. The Moretti name was echoing again. When Luca arrived that night, the Mustang cutting through puddles like a predator, I saw it in his eyes. Focus, control, ruthless determination. But also something fragile, something I'd never seen before. Fear, not for himself, but for me. He didn't step inside at first. just stood there, black coat dripping rain, hair plastered to his forehead. "Did they come?" I asked. "They always come," he said. "But they'll leave knowing I'm not the man to test." He crossed the room slowly, every movement deliberate, commanding. "I tried to keep you safe," he whispered, voice low and rough. "But the world doesn't care about the safe. Only about winners and survivors." I swallowed, realizing the truth I'd been running from. I had stepped into a war I didn't fully understand, and the man I loved, or was beginning to, was both my protector and my greatest danger. Outside, the city breathed chaos, sirens wailing in the distance, tires screeching, shadows moving. Inside, Luca reached for my hand, and for the first time, I allowed myself to feel it all: fear, desire, loyalty, and the undeniable pull of the man who had turned my world upside down. I was caught in his storm now, and there was no turning back. The city never really sleeps, but that night, it felt like it was holding its breath. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolling across the skyline like distant artillery. I stood in the dim light of my apartment, staring at the reflection of the man sitting on my couch, Luca. He looked like he belonged there, and didn't at the same time. A dark god among the ruins of my quiet life. He'd taken off his coat, his shirt sleeves rolled up, veins still taut with adrenaline. There was a faint cut above his eyebrow, the kind that said he'd been too close to danger again. He was silent, just watching me, as if he wanted to say something, but the words might destroy whatever fragile peace existed between us. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered, though my voice betrayed me. "Neither should you," he replied. He stood, closing the distance between us. His presence filled the room. Too big, too magnetic, too much. "You think this world has borders," he said softly. "That there's a way out once you've seen it." "There isn't," I turned away, my voice trembling. "Then what am I supposed to do, Luca? Wait for them to come after me? Hide while you spill blood for me?" He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm. Gentle, careful, yet commanding. "I'm not asking you to understand what I do," he murmured. "I'm asking you to trust why I do it," my breath caught. His eyes were softer now, dark yes, but not cruel. And that was what scared me most, because the man capable of violence was also capable of tenderness. He reached for my face, fingers tracing the line of my jaw like he was memorizing it. "You make me forget who I am," he said quietly. "And that's the most dangerous thing you could have done." I should have pulled away. I should have told him this was wrong, that his world and mine could never mix. But instead, I found myself whispering, "Then forget a little longer." His breath hitched, and before I could think, his lips were on mine, fierce, desperate, the kiss of a man who'd been holding back for too long. The storm outside roared, matching the chaos in my chest. Every part of me screamed that this was dangerous, that loving him was standing at the edge of a cliff with no way back. When he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathless. "This can't happen again," he said. We both knew it was a lie, because in that moment, something irreversible had broken. The line between danger and desire, gone. The edge we stood on, crumbling beneath us. And as thunder shook the city, I realized what scared me most wasn't losing him. It was what I was becoming because of him. The morning started like any other. The city hummed below, indifferent to the chaos that churned in my chest. I thought I could pretend, thought I could go back to the garage, to normal, to whatever semblance of life I'd had before Luca appeared. I was wrong. The first warning came in a letter slipped under my door. No handwriting I recognized. Just 3 words written in jagged ink. "He's coming." My stomach dropped. I didn't know if it meant Luca or someone else. I couldn't call him. His presence was already too dangerous. Then, around midday, a familiar voice echoed from the alley behind my garage. I turned, expecting a friendly face, a colleague, anyone. It wasn't anyone I trusted. It was Marco, Luca's right-hand man. But not the same Marco I'd glimpsed before. This Marco's eyes avoided mine. His hands trembled slightly. And in his pocket, the unmistakable glint of a gun. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice low, nervous. He hesitated. I have to tell you something." Before I could react, a sleek black SUV screeched to the curb. 2 men stepped out. Fast, trained, merciless, my heart froze. Marco didn't move to stop them. He didn't warn me. They know you're here, he whispered. And in that moment, the realization hit like ice in my veins. Betrayal. He had led them to me. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs refused. My mind raced. How could someone so close turn against us? The men lunged. My first instinct was to duck, but Luca's voice cut through the chaos. Low, thunderous, commanding. Get back! And then he was there, like a shadow, like a predator. The fight was brutal, silent, precise. I watched him move. Every strike, every motion. Lethal and beautiful in its efficiency. Marco stepped back, his face pale. He didn't meet Luca's eyes. When it was over, silence fell. Bodies slumped in the alley, rain washing the streets like a muted stage. I ran to Luca, hands shaking. Why didn't anyone warn me? His face softened. A rare vulnerability breaking through the storm. Because betrayal is part of this world, he said quietly. And anyone close to me can make mistakes, or choices they'll regret forever. I stared at him, breathless, terrified, and strangely exhilarated. I could have died, I whispered. You almost did, he admitted. His hand cupped my cheek. And that's why you stay close, but never in front of me. I don't protect people who run into the line of fire. I protect people who survive it. The rain fell harder. We stood together in the alley, soaked, tense, hearts racing. I realized then that in his world, trust was a weapon, betrayal was inevitable, and love was the most dangerous gamble of all. The garage felt smaller than usual, shadows stretching across the walls like silent witnesses. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. Then the Mustang engine rumbled softly outside. Luca stepped out of the rain, coat dripping, eyes sharp, unreadable. No smile, no words, just him. Like a storm contained in human form. You shouldn't be here, I whispered, though my voice betrayed me. He tilted his head. And yet you are. I took a deep breath. The events of the past week, the gunfire, the betrayal, the men who had come for me, played in my mind like a loop I couldn't stop. I could leave, walk away, go back to a life without danger, a life without him. But I didn't. I know the risk, I said finally. I know what being with you means. His expression softened, just slightly. And yet you're still here? I stepped closer. My hands trembled, but my voice held steady. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of losing you if I leave. And I'm done hiding from it. He studied me. The tension in his jaw, the flare of his nostrils, the way his dark eyes weighed every word. You know what this world will do to you? He asked quietly. How far I'll go to protect you? Yes, I said. And I'll go with you, even into the fire. For a moment, his shoulders slumped, a brief, almost imperceptible release of tension. Then he stepped forward, closing the distance between us. His hands cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek. You realize this isn't a fairy tale, he said. It's a war. You'll see things no one should see. You'll touch danger, feel it. And if you can't survive it... I can, I interrupted, because I want to survive it, with you. A long silence followed. The rain drummed against the garage roof like a heartbeat. Then, for the first time, he allowed himself to smile. Dark, almost dangerous, but real. You're insane, he said. Maybe, I whispered. But it's my choice, and I choose you. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against mine, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. No enemies, no betrayals, no bullets or rival families or endless nights of fear. Just us. Two people standing on the edge of chaos, deciding to step into it together. Finally, he pulled back, eyes smoldering with something I'd never seen. Admiration, desire, and a touch of respect. Then it's settled, he said. You're no longer just a girl fixing cars. You're mine, and I'll make sure you survive, even if I have to burn the city down to do it. I nodded, my heart pounding. Danger, chaos, betrayal, all of it could still come. But I didn't care anymore, because I had chosen him, and there was no turning back. The night sky bled crimson over the city. Neon lights shimmered against puddles, bending and twisting like reflections of another world. His world. I sat beside Luca in his black Aston Martin, hum of the engine vibrating through the leather seats. He hadn't spoken in minutes. Neither had I. Every street we passed seemed to hold a secret, a whispered deal, a quiet betrayal, a life traded for power. This was his kingdom, and for the first time, I was stepping inside it. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the low growl of the car. He glanced at me, then back at the road. "To the core," he said simply. "If you're with me, you see everything. No lies. No masks." The city changed as we drove. Skyscrapers fading into narrow alleys. Luxury turning into decay. He parked in front of an old warehouse by the docks. Men stood guard, silent and armed, their faces half-lit by the glow of burning barrels. When he stepped out, they all straightened instantly. Some nodded. Some didn't dare to look him in the eye. And I understood. This wasn't respect. It was fear. Inside, the air smelled like oil and secrets. Maps covered the walls, red circles and lines drawn like veins across the paper. Crates of weapons, stacks of cash, and files marked with names I didn't want to read. "This is what you wanted to see," he said. "What you chose." I turned slowly, taking it all in. It was chaos, organized, deliberate, and cold. And yet, in the center of it all stood Luca. Calm, collected, untouchable. He approached a table, tossed his gloves down, and looked at me. "You still think you can handle this?" I met his gaze. "I'm not made of glass, Luca. I can handle truth, even when it burns." His lips curved slightly, but his eyes stayed deadly serious. "Then listen carefully. There are men out there who will use you to get to me. They'll hurt you, not because they hate you, but because I care about you." I swallowed hard, the reality sinking in. "Then," I said, "teach me to survive this." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded once. "Then you start tonight." He walked me through his empire, coded ledgers, escape routes, his network of loyalty and fear. Every word was a test, every glance a warning. And yet, the closer we stood, the more I felt that unspoken electricity between us, stronger than the danger that surrounded us. When he finally turned off the lights, leaving us bathed only in moonlight through the high windows, he whispered, "You stepped into my fire, Bella. Just remember, once you're in, there's no walking out." I looked at him, heart pounding, and whispered back, "Then let it burn." The first explosion tore through the night like thunder. I was in the garage, sorting through spare parts, when the blast hit. The floor trembled beneath my boots, glass shattered, and the world tilted into chaos. "Luca!" I screamed, running toward the sound. Sirens wailed in the distance, but the only thing louder was my heart. Smoke filled the street, dark and suffocating. Flames danced against the brick walls outside, licking the edges of the warehouse like fire hungry for blood. Before I could reach the door, 2 of Luca's men stormed in, weapons drawn. "Stay back!" one yelled. They found us. My blood ran cold. They, the same men Luca had warned me about, his rivals, the ones who ruled the darker corners of the city. And they were here. I ducked behind a car lift as bullets shattered the garage windows. Sparks flew. Tires burst. The air was alive with violence. Then, through the haze, I saw him. Luca. His figure emerged from the smoke, coat torn, gun in hand, moving with lethal precision. Every motion was deliberate, deadly, beautiful. He fired twice, hitting both attackers before they even reached cover. He turned, eyes locking on mine. "Get down!" Another blast hit nearby, knocking me off my feet. Pain seared through my shoulder, and before I knew it, he was there, pulling me close, shielding me with his own body. "I told you this world burns," he hissed, voice rough, desperate. "Now you see it." I could barely breathe. "They want you." "Not me." His jaw clenched. "No, they want leverage. And you," his eyes flicked to mine, intense, unwavering. "You're mine to protect." He pressed a gun into my shaking hands. "Can you use it?" My pulse spiked. "I've never..." "Then learn now." We crouched behind a shattered car frame. The enemy was closing in, boots echoing on the wet concrete. Luca moved like a shadow, covering me, drawing their fire. I focused, aimed the way he'd shown me in the warehouse earlier that night. Slow breath, steady hands. A figure stepped through the smoke. I pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked me, but the bullet hit. He dropped instantly. Luca glanced back, eyes wide for a moment, pride flickering beneath the chaos. "That's it, Bella," he growled. "Now stay with me." The fight raged on until the last echo faded. When it was finally over, the garage was unrecognizable. Fire, smoke, the metallic scent of destruction. I collapsed against a wall, trembling. Luca crouched beside me, brushing ash from my face. "You did good," he murmured, tears mixed with soot on my cheeks. "This is what it means, isn't it? Being with you," he nodded slowly. "This is what it costs." And in that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of our world, I realized the truth. I wasn't just a mechanic anymore. I was part of the fire. The fire had finally died, but the smoke still lingered. The garage, my sanctuary, my second home, was now a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered glass. The smell of burnt rubber and gasoline clung to the air like a memory that refused to fade. I sat on the cracked concrete floor, knees pulled close to my chest, my hands still trembling. The gun was gone now, but the feel of it hadn't left my fingers. Luca stood a few feet away, his silhouette sharp against the faint orange glow of the dying flames. Blood streaked his knuckles. A cut ran across his cheek. But he didn't seem to notice. He was staring at the destruction. His empire, his secrets, his carefully built world, reduced to smoke. "Is it over?" I asked softly. He didn't turn. "No, not even close." Silence settled between us, heavy and raw. Only the crackle of distant embers filled the void. I stood slowly, my legs weak, and walked toward him. "You saved me." He finally looked at me. Those cold, dark eyes now filled with something I couldn't name. Guilt? Relief? Maybe both. "I should have kept you out of this," he said quietly. "You don't belong here." A bitter laugh escaped me. "You think I don't know that?" I gestured to the wreckage. "But I made my choice. I'm here, with you, even when it hurts." He stepped closer, the smell of smoke and rain mixing with his cologne, sharp, intoxicating, dangerous. His hand lifted to touch my chin, thumb brushing away a streak of soot. "I told you this world burns," he murmured. "And now you've bled for it." Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't look away. "I'd do it again," he froze. The firelight flickered across his face, catching in the storm of emotion he tried so hard to hide. "You don't understand," he said, his voice low, breaking. "Every person I let close to me ends up destroyed. I can't lose you too." "Then stop pushing me away," I whispered. "Because I'm already in it, Luca. The fire, the danger, the madness, it's part of me now. And the only thing that scares me is losing you." For a long, unbearable moment, he just stared, eyes dark, jaw tight. Then finally, his hand slid behind my neck, pulling me closer until our foreheads touched. "Damn it," he muttered. "You shouldn't love me." "Too late," I breathed. His lips brushed mine, slow, deliberate, almost reverent. The world around us was broken, but for that moment, none of it mattered. When he pulled away, his voice dropped to a whisper. "We rebuild. From this. Together." And as the first light of dawn crept across the ruins of the garage, I knew it wasn't just his empire rising again. It was us, scarred, haunted, but unbreakable. The city was still asleep when Luca finally spoke. We'd driven for hours, away from the smoke, away from the blood, away from everything that reminded us of what had just happened. He parked the car on a cliff overlooking the bay. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the water in shades of gold and scarlet. It should have been beautiful, but the look in his eyes told me beauty was the last thing on his mind. "You deserve the truth," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but I could feel the storm beneath it. Years of secrets clawing to the surface. I turned to him. "The truth about what?" He didn't look at me right away. His hands rested on the steering wheel, veins tense beneath his skin. "When we met, it wasn't by accident." The words hit like a blow. "What do you mean?" He exhaled slowly, staring out at the ocean. "The night your car broke down when you offered to fix mine, I already knew who you were." My stomach twisted. "You what?" "I'd been watching you," he said, voice flat, emotionless. "Not because I wanted to, because I had to." I stared at him, heart racing, waiting for the rest. "There was a leak in my organization," he continued. "Someone was feeding information to the police. And your garage, it was connected. Your boss, the suppliers, someone was moving my money through your shop." My throat went dry. "So you used me?" He turned sharply, eyes blazing. "No, at first, yes. I wanted to find the link. But then," his voice cracked just slightly, "then I saw you. The way you worked. The way you never looked at people like they were beneath you. The way you fought back when life kicked you down. You reminded me of someone I lost. I swallowed hard, my chest tight. Who? He hesitated, then whispered, My sister. He looked down, his hand tightening on the steering wheel. She was killed because of me, because of this world. I swore I'd never let anyone that close again. And then you came along, fixing a car I already knew would break. Tears blurred my vision. So all of this, us, it started as a lie. Yes, he said softly, but it didn't stay that way. He reached for me, hesitant. He wasn't sure he deserved to. Every day with you made me forget what I was. You made me remember I was still human. I looked at him, this man I'd trusted, loved, and feared, and realized the truth hurt more than any bullet could. But beneath the betrayal there was something else. Understanding. You could have kept lying. I whispered. But you didn't, he nodded slowly. Because you deserve to love me knowing exactly who I am, and how much blood that love costs. Silence fell again, heavy and endless. And as the sun broke fully over the water, I realized that even the truth couldn't unmake what we'd become. The morning air was sharp with salt and silence. The city below shimmered under the first rays of dawn, as if nothing had happened. As if last night's gunshots and confessions were just ghosts of another world. But I knew better. That world wasn't gone. It lived inside us now. Luca stood at the edge of the cliff, his coat rippling in the wind, the sea stretching endlessly beyond him. He looked untouchable, almost mythical. But I could see the cracks now. The exhaustion, the regret, the man beneath the myth. I walked toward him, each step slow, deliberate. What happens now? I asked. He didn't turn right away. Now? He exhaled, voice low. Now I end it. A chill swept through me. And what? The cycle, he said. The violence. The blood. My enemies think I'll come for revenge. They expect it. Finally, he looked at me, eyes darker than the sea behind him. But I'm done. I'm walking away. I stared, disbelief freezing me in place. You can't just walk away. This isn't a job you quit, Luca. It's your life. He gave a small, broken smile. It was. Until you. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. You think they'll just let you go? They won't have a choice. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black envelope, unmarked, sealed. This has everything they need to destroy me. My records, my deals, all of it. He handed it to me. You'll give this to the police, and if I don't come back... I stared at it, horrified. You're not doing this alone. He stepped closer, his hand brushing a strand of hair from my face. You already did your part. You survived me, my voice cracked. That's not enough. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing the line of a tear. When I met you, I thought I was saving a stranger. Turns out you were the one saving me. The wind whipped around us, fierce and cold, but his voice stayed steady. If I don't make it back, promise me something. I swallowed hard. What? Promise you'll live, he whispered. Not hide, not run. Live, the way you always did before I walked into your garage. I wanted to argue, to scream, to tell him love wasn't supposed to end like this. But instead, I nodded. Because some promises are too sacred for words. He leaned in, pressed a kiss to my forehead. Soft, lingering, final. Then he turned and walked toward the waiting car. The engine roared, and within seconds, he was gone, swallowed by the horizon, by fate, by fire. I stood there long after the sound faded, clutching the black envelope, my heart heavy and alive all at once. And as the sun climbed higher, lighting the world in gold, I whispered the words he'd left me with. The only truth that ever mattered. He was fire. I was the spark. And together we burned the dark away. The city never forgets. The fire, the blood, the secrets. They linger in the shadows, in the whispers of those who survive. She fixed a stranger's car, and unknowingly stepped into the world of a ruthless mafia boss. Love, danger, betrayal, all tangled together in a story that leaves no one untouched. Some people live for the calm. Some people survive the storm, and some choose to burn with it. Don't miss the next story that will pull you into the heart of darkness. Passion and revenge. Subscribe now to BRD Stories Hub, where every secret has a price, and every love story leaves a mark.